everyone, welcome back to another episode of I Can Do This All Day. I'm Dan, the part-time Avenger, and with me is Mark, the resident Jedi.
Hello there. We're here today to talk about a movie that's based on a movie that had a man with a mullet in it. And that movie is Roadhouse.
Did you like the original Roadhouse?
I mean, I have a warm place in my heart for that Swayze classic, mostly because I thought it was a hilarious premise and such an 80s thing to just have a bar where a bunch of dudes fought.
Did you see it like multiple times, or like are you in like the double digits club or what?
I've probably seen it double digits, yeah, over the years.
I saw it maybe 3 times. Only reason I liked it is because of the fact that it was cool to like Roadhouse. And I think 3 out of those 3 times that I watched it, 2 of them happened after Family Guy referenced Roadhouse in one of the episodes. So I think that's the only reason I went back to watch it, because very much like a lot of, in quotes, action heroes, I have a particular preference for an action hero, and Patrick Swayze was not one of them. A skinny dancer in tight jeans, probably not going to kick anyone's ass. He probably weighed like a $170, and he was whooping everyone's ass in that movie. I was like, no way. Don't buy it. It was cool, and he did a good job in it, but just not totally believable, in my opinion. I don't know. Am I alone in that? Did you think Patrick Swayze was like an action star?
I mean, you roundhouse somebody with a pair of cowboy boots, they're going to get pretty effed up. And he was learning from Sam Elliott, the master.
Sam Elliott was like the lone bright spot in Roadhouse, in my opinion.
A man with a mustache like that could beat the shit out of you. And you know it.
That was the highlight for me. And of course, the throat rip was hilarious and funny after the fact. But when I first saw it, I was like, that's weird. Like, I had no reaction to it whatsoever. And now in hindsight, it's just like, yep, everyone's waiting for the throat rip, you know? And were you excited to hear that there was a remake with Gyllenhaal?
I don't know if excited is the right word. I mean, I think Gyllenhaal brings range to you know, the screen, which is a good thing. This movie was ripe for some terrible zero acting skill professional wrestler to step into the lead role, not just the supporting role, or actually just the villain role, right? Not even the supporting role, just the I'm here for a few minutes role. And absolutely make this terrible. This could have been like a Stone Cold Steve Austin film, which I would not have given a hell yeah.
Stone Cold has been in good movies, and he's been a good villain. He's been a good heel in movies like The Longest Yard.
There's a world where in the Stone Cold era that he could have been Dalton, right? Sure. And I'm glad that they at least brought an actor in to play the lead character, as opposed to shoving somebody with no range or acting skill into the role.
Are you talking about Ronda Rousey, who was originally slated to be the title character of this?
That would have been heinous.
She's awful. She is just flat. She was awful in, was it Furious 7? That was, yeah, she was like one of the bodyguards in Furious 7. And
you know what she was good in? She was good in Entourage.
Yeah, sure.
Because she just played herself.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, oh, that must be Ronda Rousey.
It was,
no disrespect. I don't want to get roundhouse kicked by Ronda Rousey. I don't want to get punched in the face by Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey has many talents.
All the disrespect. I mean all the disrespect for it. It would have been an awful choice. It would have been an awful choice. So I'm glad that they didn't go through with it. And the only reason they didn't go through with it, or well, I shouldn't say only, but one of the biggest reasons is because she got knocked the fuck out by Holly Holm in spectacular fashion. And that sent Roadhouse tumbling down. So,
well, did you read that article she put out recently?
I don't read anything that she says, talks about anything. So
she talked about something that very much came up in this movie, and I feel like there's a whole scene of it, and we'll get to that later. But she was talking about the reason that her career ended in fighting, because she could have kept going, or she was
she could have?
Well, she was being told to keep going, but she was having like compounding effects for multiple concussions.
Oh yeah, like every other fighter. Yeah.
Well, but that's just what I'm saying. Like, champion that. Like, oh, like I feel, somebody that's got to put their body on the line like that in order to live. Um, Given they get compensated for it at a high level in some respects, but I mean, you're paying to like have some effects later on.
I just never understood the appeal of her being like a Hollywood leading lady. Like she was in Expendables, and she was fine in that because
Yeah,
she
I
had
don't
such a
remember her
minor
being bad.
role. Yeah, it was fine. But at the same time, I'm just like, just like when Hulk Hogan was being put into movies as
Oh,
the lead
don't you
character.
rip the Hulkster in movies.
I will.
Oh,
They all suck. They all 100% suck. Sucks.
Suburban Commando.
Sucks again. I'll
Oh,
say it again.
you remember
Sucks.
the TV series with the boat?
Oh, so Thunder in
Thunder
Paradise.
in
I
Paradise?
I
The
enjoyed
show's
watching that.
amazing.
I enjoyed watching it because they had cameos from other wrestlers. Like Macho Man would show up for
Oh,
no reason.
I
Ric Flair, I think, showed up for no reason. But there was the Baywatch episode where they had the bash at the beach with Hogan and Vader and Ric Flair, and just yeah, man. I just don't understand
well,
how
there
some
was
of
a
those
Thunder in
dudes.
Paradise movie with the Hulkster, right?
Was there really?
Yeah,
Like,
the
obviously
TV
made
show
for
is a
TV.
spin-off of the movie.
Well, obviously it was a made for TV movie, right?
No, I don't know
I'll
that.
bet. I'll bet on that. It's not. It probably was just like a regular, like a TV pilot. I think you're being mistaken. There was no Thunder
Ooh.
in Paradise movie. I'll bet.
I'm I'm unsure, but the Hulkster's career, I have no problem with. There are many films that I celebrate the Hulkster in.
Yeah.
What would we
Uh,
do without Thunderlips?
I that was okay because he wasn't the main character in it, so that's
He
fine.
was also in Gremlins 2.
Was he really?
He was.
What did he
He
do in
was.
Gremlins too?
I think it was like a cameo, so he didn't have to carry any responsibility for the film, which
Okay,
not a bad thing. Not a
fair
bad thing,
enough.
but Mr. Nanny, I mean, come on.
Sucks. You
Oh,
want me like hold on? Let me just loop. Let me just record myself saying sucks, and then every time you say a Hulk Hogan movie, I'll just play the button and
Santa
sucks,
with muscles,
sucks,
McKinsey Island, Three Ninjas High Noon at Mega Mountain.
sucks.
I mean, come on.
You're gonna keep on listing it off because I'm gonna say sucks after every single one.
Muppets in from Space did not suck, but he also had a very small cameo in that.
Yeah.
But devoid of the Hulkster, you get what I'm saying, though, right? That they could have given this role and remade this movie in a less than optimal way, but they bring out, like, in my opinion, one of the most underrated actors of our age.
Really, you think he's underrated? I mean, he's been in everything and he's had like really good roles. I don't know if he's ever won like an Oscar or anything, but I that's the only thing that I could see is like being a underrated thing
That's
about Jake
He's got
Gyllenhaal.
one nom. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, this guy's been in some cult classics and put out some exceptional performances, and he's only been nominated once.
I think for Jake Gyllenhaal, there was him being up for Spider-Man. In hindsight, I think like, oh, that would have been really cool. But at the time, I was like, how could you get him like Donnie Darko as Spider-Man? It didn't click for me at that point. But I kind of wish to go back in time. Like I would have been okay having Gyllenhaal be Spider-Man, and I think it was Spider-Man 2 is the one he was up for, recasting Toby, because I wasn't a huge fan of Toby Maguire, but hey man, Toby was pretty awesome to see in No Way Home, so I'm good with how things turned out. But
Oh yeah, no, love me some
Gyllenhaal
Toby.
Gyllenhaal's great. I mean, he's I just watched The Covenant, the Guy Ritchie movie with him in it. That was fantastic. I think he just also partners up with really good directors. Now, Doug Liman, who directed this, he made one of my favorite movies from the early 2000s, and that was Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So that was really cool to see. So I was thinking, like, oh man, he knows how to shoot action. This is going to be fun. And you got Gyllenhaal. I didn't realize McGregor was going to be in it as much as he was, but I was thinking, like, okay, cool. They're going to do something like good with this particular movie as opposed to like the silliness of the 80s version of it. So, which I think it was in the 80s, right? Roadhouse was in the 80s. I don't, maybe
It
early
absolutely
90s.
was in the 80s. You know what else was in the
Okay.
80s? Jake Gyllenhaal's first movie. Any idea what it was?
No.
City Slickers.
Who was he in City Slickers? Like,
He was Mitch's son.
eh,
Yeah.
never knew it.
Yeah.
Underrated Jake Gyllenhaal movie, in my opinion, Bubble Boy. Bubble Boy
Very
was
Bubble Boy's
hilarious.
Bubble Boy's underrated. It is really funny.
So
Um,
damn funny.
I'm really surprised that you call out the action movie you call out for Doug Liman as Mrs. and Mr. and Mrs. Smith when he's done a way better action movie before that, The Bourne Identity.
Yeah. But I didn't like Born Identity as much as Mr. and Mrs. Smith, so that's all.
Do you have a
It was
favorite of
fine.
his films? Mr. and Mrs. Smith is your favorite one of his movies.
I don't know. I don't know his catalog all that well, but I really liked Mr. and Mrs. Smith. That was like a movie that I watched quite a bit, and it was just like a cool dynamic. They had awesome action, the humor, and the chemistry with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie was great.
Yeah.
Even Vince Vaughn's character in that was really awesome. But no, I would say, without knowing the rest of his catalog, I would probably say that's my favorite for sure. What
Not
about
my
you?
favorite. Do you ever wonder why Vince Vaughn got in that movie?
No, no.
Because Doug Liman, or what is it? What's his first name?
Oh, was that Swingers? Was he
Yes.
Swingers? Okay.
Yes.
I didn't realize he did
Doug
that. Okay.
Liman. Doug Liman. I got to mispronounce one name at least.
That's
He directed Swingers, which
okay.
is I was trying to figure out in this movie like there's some quippage here. There's like some good, there's some bad,
Oh
but
yeah.
there's also some tight quippage, and
There is. He does a good job with that
I
for
think
sure.
there's a little bit of rubbed a little Swingers on it.
This movie originally was supposed to be directed by Rob Cohen, the director of the original The Fast and the Furious, which I was thinking like, wow, that would have been a disaster because I don't know if he's ever done a movie that, besides
That
the
has
original Fast
dialogue
and the
that's
Furious.
active,
Yeah,
like that has
there's
dialogue
no.
that's shot actually well.
I liked the Fast and I love the Fast and the Furious, the original one, but it's because it's so bad and silly and quotable. It's not because I'm like,
Is
this is a cinematic masterpiece. Like, no, no freaking way. So
is
I'm
it
kind of glad
because
that that didn't happen.
is it because all the dialogue in the original Fast and the Furious seems like it was like written read off of a cue card? Like better acting has been done on skits in SNL.
Maybe, maybe. I don't know. I liked it. So
That's the
I
only
don't know
way
if it's.
that some of those guys remembered all the names of those car parts.
Oh, so good though. I mean, Hector's running 3 Honda Civics with spoon engines, and just on top of
And then
that,
they
he
change the card because there's a pause, and then he goes into the next part, and they
yeah.
change the card because there's a pause.
And he just came into Harry's and bought 3 T66 turbos with NOS and a Motec system exhaust. Come on, how can
You
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 not?
you pause for the card change. You already know.
Oh man, but it's all good and fun. But Doug Lyman, he had some good credits to his name, so I was like, all right, cool, this is gonna be fun. Didn't realize McGregor was gonna be in it as much, but I'm kind of curious. This has been a recurring theme on our podcast in the last maybe 50 or so episodes, but I would love to hear. Wow, 50 episodes. That's crazy. Um,
Wait a minute.
I would love to hear your version of the plot.
Man gets angry. He doesn't like to get angry. Nobody likes him when he's angry. Decides to walk the earth in search of money that keeps him from getting angry.
Well, he drove the earth. Let's be real.
I mean, not after he tried to kill himself with a train.
So did you like that twist on it to where he's kind of a guy with demons as opposed to just a mysterious drifter?
I didn't like that he didn't have an HR system ready to go in his medical records. Like there were things that were cool about that. But then he's just like, no, I'm just gonna suffer. Like I thought that was funny. The fact that he was nice about it was also the opening scene. I was trying to figure out, is that really Post Malone? And how
Yeah.
CGI'd is this fight with Post Malone? Because it was
God.
definitely CGI'd. It was
Yeah.
100% CGI'd.
So Scott
Um,
Adkins, who was who played Killa in John Wick chapter 4. Big action guy, martial artist, and he thought the movie was entertaining, but he really criticized the CGI in that. So I noticed it right off the bat. Like, so first off, number one, you mentioned Post Malone. The guy who looks like he could kick nobody's ass is won 6 fights in a row. And then in walks this mysterious hoodie wearing stranger, sits down, and no one realizes who he is until he takes off his hoodie. And then Post Malone's like, peace, I'm out of here. I don't want to get murdered by this guy. Couldn't they have gotten Stone Cold or something like at the beginning of the movie? Why not find like a more intimidating guy? Now, Post Malone now, where he's like all skinny and stuff, like I'm sure that could probably be uh a little bit more believable. I'm a Post Malone fan. I like his stuff, and he's so versatile. Which, by the way, if you've never checked out his covers of Nirvana, they're awesome. So do yourself a favor and check it out. But I don't know, man. I just don't believe him as the undefeated street brawler cage fighter at the beginning of the movie. Just doesn't make sense.
You know what makes sense about it? Money. Talk about somebody who could share the shit out of that movie being out there, that he's in it on socials, to get watches on Amazon. I don't even know how they monetize Prime anymore.
I
Like,
don't know.
I get it because they send me things that I don't pay shipping for. And that's how I watch that movie without paying. I'm unsure how you monetize Prime these days.
Well, that movie was brought to you by Civil War, which will be due out in a couple months. So I don't know if you saw that. Like, I guess the way that they're kind of doing that is just like, all right, who wants to be a preview for our movie before we get into it? Because that's exactly what they did. Doug Liman was really pissed off because he wanted a theatrical release and he thought he was getting a theatrical release, while Gyllenhaal was kind of sympathetic towards that, and he was saying like, yeah, I understand Doug's position, but at the same time, Amazon made it pretty clear that it was going to be a streaming movie, which I don't know of anyone who would be happy about that. Like everyone wants to have a theatrical run to at least, be up for contention for awards, but
That
not
movie would
to
have done
say,
okay in the theater.
oh yeah, yeah, I think so. I think just for the spectacle, I think it would have been all right. So
All the McGregor fans would
unfortunately,
have gone to see it.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
the most we've seen McGregor fight in like half a decade.
it's true. It's true. Uh, what did you think of like Gyllenhaal's polarizing take on Dalton? Because he was just very smiley and polite and a nice guy. What did you think about that?
I thought it was hilarious. I liked it a lot. That's why I said the director, it reminded me of some of the like baseline behind the scenes. It's like play this. It's like you got the direction. Play this like you're Vince Vaughn, because that's what I see in my head.
They
Ripped ass kicking Vince Vaughn.
they yeah. Oh, has there ever been a ripped ass kicking
No,
Vince Vaughn?
there hasn't. There hasn't. But
But we
think
got
about
it.
that.
We
Think
got
about
it.
that. If you thought Vince Vaughn in Psycho was scary, think about ripped roundhouse kicking like Vince Vaughn. Whoa, because he's not a small man.
No, he's a big dude. He's a
Mm,
big dude.
mm.
I liked the smiley type of character from Gyllenhaal on this one, just
I thought
because.
the drive them to the hospital part was hilarious.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's more believable too, because like the badasses that fight in the UFC, they're not gonna come off like Conor McGregor as Knox in this, right? They're not gonna be like that obnoxious asshole. They're gonna be quiet. They're gonna smile. They're gonna laugh to themselves, knowing that I could kick anyone's ass if they come up to me. So I was cool with this, and obviously this guy has some demons. So I think his nice guy attitude played well into that, because it's like, all right, I gotta put this shit into check, because I can't go murdering people everywhere I go. So while I'm driving the earth or walking the earth as after his car gets mashed up, I'm glad that he still kept his smiley disposition.
It definitely set up for the flip to be really impactful. Like when you find out why.
Did you think that? Did you like guess that or predict it?
Oh, I didn't even think about it, honestly.
Yeah. I wasn't sure where they were going with that, but I noticed a pretty big difference in his character, just
Right.
kind of
Beforehand
drifting
to
around.
afterwards. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like when you see the flashbacks of him at the weigh-in, he slaps Jay Heron, who's an MMA fighter, retired, but it was just kind of weird to see that. It's like this doesn't seem like the right or the same guy at all, but now it makes sense. So like he
Yeah.
must have done a lot of yoga and meditation to bring him to his happy place.
And pull-ups.
Yeah. Well, I only saw him do two pull-ups, so I don't know. It made it look like he was doing this like crazy ass montage, but he did two pull-ups and then he did some sit-ups
I mean, they
and
did enough
some
of a
planks.
montage to remind you that the Sways did a hell of a montage.
I don't remember a montage with him at all.
There was a whole workout
Um,
thing in the barn.
was there?
Oh,
Okay.
wasn't there?
I maybe. I know he
Oh,
had sex in the barn,
yeah, he
so
did.
I don't know if you consider that as the montage, but yeah,
Yeah.
he did the whole butt in the moonlight walk
Oh, yeah.
with that movie, right? I'm pretty sure he did. Yeah, because the barn door was just like wide open, so just
That's
weird stuff,
that's
man.
that's something.
That's romantic. That's what that is.
Barn door open. That's romantic. I'll tell your wife that that's what you
Yeah,
said. To look out for it.
yeah,
Look out for the
exactly.
barn door.
Who would win the fight? Swayze's Dalton or Gyllenhaal's Dalton?
Ooh.
Realistically, but also sympathetically, who's going to win that fight?
The way they portray Gyllenhaal's Dalton is he can take some damage. And he like runs to damage. So because of the large damage factor, I've got to go with the Gyllenhaal Dalton. We knew that Swayze's Dalton could take that damage. It might be close. I think we know that Swayze's Dalton would have put him, it would have just looked to put him out of commission. There
Yeah,
was no kneecap kicking in this movie. They didn't do that thing where, it doesn't matter how big guy is, you break his kneecap and he's going to hit the ground. Like he broke some fingers, right? And when you don't care if you live or die, you could do that kind of thing. Like it's okay. But
true. I
that's
will
I
say
think it'd be a good fight.
so, but you're saying Gyllenhaal
Only
overall,
because
right?
we've seen him take damage and we haven't seen Swayze do it. If it was Gyllenhaal and his backup and Swayze and his backup, Swayze and Sam Elliott would kill all those motherfuckers.
You mean not the college kid who had some amateur boxing fights and then
Yeah,
just a tall guy who
yeah,
who,
yeah.
who was there?
No, who are those at the end of the movie? And I know we're not there yet, but at the end of the movie, where those two guys are like high fiving and all excited, all I could think of was the Ron White bit where he talks about the bouncer, right? He's that really excited kind of bouncer who watches Roadhouse and touches himself. I'm like, those are those guys. That's those guys.
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah,
that's good.
I
So
think I would say the OG Roadhouse team absolutely beats the crap out of the new Roadhouse team. But the
so I
new
think
Roadhouse villain probably beats the shit out of the old Roadhouse villain.
I can't even remember the old Roadhouse villain. Couldn't even tell
It,
you about him.
I mean, it took multiple stabs with like wooden poles to take down McGregor in this. So
And he's still ticking. He's still ticking.
it was pretty impressive.
So I will say that with between Swayze Dalton and Gyllenhaal Dalton, you brought up a good point to where it's like you can see him take damage, and so like in the purist in me will say Gyllenhaal all day. However, I do have some nostalgia for Patrick Swayze and Point Break, and I think as much damage as Gyllenhaal can take, I don't think he can take a throat rip. And I think Dalton's going to pull that out on Elwood Dalton. So I'll go with Patrick Swayze on this one. Can't stop the throat rip, man. Can't stop
And
it. They
also
don't teach that. They don't teach that in UFC. So
hard to hard to take a roundhouse kick a roundhouse heel kick with a cowboy boot to the temple and not see the lights go out.
Yeah. I mean, you don't think flip flops would work for Gyllenhaal? I don't know if he
I'm
was
gonna
wearing flip flops, but
say
he looked pretty casual.
he did not do a lot of kicking though. Like the sways was all kicks,
Yeah,
where Gyllenhaal is more of a grappler.
fair
There's some
enough.
jujitsu involved. They were talking about it, all the different ones he went to.
What about Conor McGregor's Knox? So, did you anticipate him being as just fucking goofy, batshit loony?
Was Knox short for obnoxious? Like, I get McGregor is McGregor, but this was like McGregor to the 12th level. He was
Yeah,
turned up. I don't think I expected that, but I wasn't mad at it. He did the shimmy thing a couple times, right? They had to
a
paint
couple.
over the whole time. They had to paint over his tattoos to give him knocks on his stomach, right?
Yeah,
So I wasn't upset. I tell you what did bother me about McGregor in this movie. All right. Are you ready? So I'm going to take you to the first bar fight where they end up behind the bar and they're fighting, right? They're behind the bar. McGregor's punching the liquor bottles and stuff like that. How the hell does Gyllenhaal not reach back, grab a bottle of his whiskey and hit him in the face with it? Like, how is that not there? How is that not part of McGregor's thing? Like, oh, we got to do this fight scene in this bar proper, and
there
then bam,
was there was a bottle of Proper 12. It looked like in that movie. They didn't show the label, but it looked just like it. So
show
I
the
don't know if you
label
caught
going
that.
across his face. That's what the fans want to see, my guy.
Yeah, but he doesn't own Proper 12 anymore. He sold off
Oh,
his shares. So
that explains it. I don't keep up with celebrity liquor ownership much anymore. Um,
I don't know why anyone does. But yeah, I mean, his fucking gorilla walk, just super ridiculous because he did it everywhere. Like I totally get it. Like you get caught by the wife's husband and you fucking strut around Italy like you're the man because you don't give a fuck. You're a
woo,
hired gun, a mercenary, but like cool, fine. You do that, great.
did
And I knew
he
he was gonna
pitch?
be
I'm
what?
sorry to interrupt you, but this I got to get this out there. You talked about the gorilla walk when he comes out of the window. Do you think he pitched that? Like, I can't. My action debut has to be like Arnold Schwarzenegger, where I walk in butt naked and I don't care.
I
And
mean,
then I
maybe.
find somebody. Was he like auditioning to be the new Terminator in this? But the
He
gorilla walking ridiculous Terminator?
he definitely was doing something. So supposedly he got paid like 4.5 million or something for this movie, which is like one of the higher salaries for like a first time actor just strolling onto the set. And I watched a few interviews where he was talking about kind of almost like gloating about it, like, oh yeah, I wasn't. Gyllenhaal asked him like, hey, what was it like for you to be on the movie as like a first time actor? And McGregor just like shrugged it off like, for me it wasn't a I wasn't a first time actor. I brought Doug Lyman brought me in, and so it was just like he was so pompous about it, and I'm just like,
Wait,
wow,
wait. For the people that care, can you do more of that accent?
I could later on, I will later
Mm,
on, but
Will that bring consequences later?
no, because it's an accurate accent for
Is
him.
it?
There's so
Is
many
it?
people that do like, oh, I'm Conor McGregor, and it's like, no, that's not it. You
I
gotta
don't know
talk
which one I
like
like
this.
better.
You gotta talk like this. It's Conor McGregor, baby, and he's just
Mm,
like a fucking shit show. So, and hence my outfit. It's just complete shit show today,
mm.
and I just got out of the
You're
shower, so I was like, I'll figure like, yeah, you know what? I'll dress up like a Conor McGregor douchebag. So
you look like Conor McGregor the swinger is what you're doing with all that pineapple going on there, buddy.
he might be. So the thing with him is like for all of the action, all of his scenes, I'm cool with him playing a badass, right? But I mean, there's a fine line, and he crossed it multiple times where he was just like being goofy as shit. And I didn't realize, like, it wasn't until I watched this twice. I didn't realize that they were trying to make it seem like he's a big fucking moron. Like that's just what it was. I don't know if he realized that, but that's what he is, right? I mean, he's not an intelligent dude. He's just like a bully that just like, peaked in high school and just decided to become like a mercenary. And that's where I wasn't like a huge fan of that. Like, granted, he's entertaining, he's imposing, but it's almost silly to where it's like he's not that much of a threat because he's goofy as shit and he's walking around like this. I'm a big McGregor fan too. Like I mean, he can definitely do wrong, but I just like seeing him fight, and this was like my chance to be like, oh, cool. Maybe he can cross over into movies, and I don't think he can unless he's a punchline. I really don't think he'd be
I
successful
mean, it
in
might be
other
time for a
roles.
Thunder in Paradise reboot.
Yeah, yeah,
You could do
out on
that.
the
You could
Emerald
do it.
Isle. What do you think of him being that like goofy villain? Would you rather have your villain just be like, because you had the goofiness from Ben Brandt. He was like the idiot son and spoiled rich kid, right?
He was
Like you
like
already have that.
Spalding. He was Spalding from Caddyshack, but as a villain when we didn't even know like what he was villaining.
Right. Right.
Like it was very unclear. I was like, what do I remember this guy from? And I remember him from The Big Short, where he was a big dumb idiot
Oh,
selling
yeah.
mortgages. And I'm just like, the same intelligence level here. Yeah, no, he's bragging. That's what's going on here. So yeah, it seemed like a guy trying to pretend that he was like a big deal. So I thought it was funny. I You got to remember that I grew up on like 80s and 90s movies that are now very campy because they don't play the serious villain, and I'm a huge fan of that. I enjoy it very much.
But do you need two idiots as villains?
Oh, two idiots are better than one, baby. Two plus two equals 10 in this situation.
I would almost have preferred McGregor to just be like silent in the entire thing and him do his
No,
gorilla walk.
no, you lose the whole reason you got Conor McGregor.
Yeah, but then take Ben Brandt out or something, or make him more serious,
But
because that's the thing where it's
let's be honest. There's a reason these two guys lost. And random walk the earth do gooder won. It's not because they were well organized and he is a lean, mean killing machine trained by the military to come in and wipe people out. He had a puncher's chance against a bunch of idiots and he won. Like that's the whole movie.
it sounds like you just made that movie more glorified than it actually is.
I
Like,
mean,
he got a puncher's chance, he got lucky, he did a good thing. Like, no, he went on a fucking murdering spree too, and just beat the shit out of people.
how
And
many different
then
times in that movie could that guy have died? Lady Luck was on his
who?
side.
Oh, you're talking about Dalton?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It to me it seemed like it was very shallow in terms of like the acting and plot perspective of like, especially Daniela Melchior. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name right, but Ellie, the love interest, it
Who
made
cuts
zero
her own
sense to
hair?
me. Yeah, it made zero sense to me. Like, there's a lot of exposition there, but there's no substance whatsoever.
But isn't that the Roadhouse move for him to hook up with the doctor?
Yeah,
Well,
but
that's
at the same
why.
time, it was like that doctor, or I'm sorry, like Ellie, the doctor in this one was more of a I go for the bad boys. I'm just gonna go after him type of person. I don't recall the original one, but I remember there being some resistance, like Dalton tried to pursue her or vice versa or something. I don't know. Do you remember it all?
But this isn't the age of damsels in distress.
So solidified, like I'm gonna put another notch in my
Women
bedpost
are allowed to
because
be
I'm a
assertive, Dan.
yeah, but it didn't make sense. It made zero sense. Just because like, oh, and she just happened to be the sheriff's daughter, which I don't know. Was she in the original? Was she related to
I don't
the
think so.
police? I think she just happened to work with the bad guy, right? Like that was the big
Something like
thing.
that. I don't.
Yeah, man.
I haven't seen the original in a minute.
I think the original premise was horseshit too, but I think it might be better than this premise. Watching it around, but I'm okay with her as an actor. I liked her in the Suicide Squad. I thought that was really cool with her little rat friends and everything like that. Her dad, Joaquim de Almeida, the
Oh,
sheriff,
from
he's always a
so many
bad guy.
Bond movies.
Always a bad guy, right?
Well, he
Wait,
was a
so
good
many
guy in the
Bond
Bond
movies.
movies. He
What?
was in
Who was he
Casino
in?
Royale, and the one after that was not very good.
Was he really? Well, who
Yeah,
was he in Casino Royale?
he was the police inspector that Bond was working with at the casino.
Oh, was oh okay.
Yeah, and then he got brought back in the next one.
Was he? Did he end up being a bad guy in the next one or no?
No, he was a good guy and he got killed.
Really? Oh, okay.
He
I
was
that
collateral Bond damage.
that would have been the first time I've ever seen him as a good guy then, because I don't think I've ever seen him as a good guy in anything else. I remember in Patriot games, or no, not Patriot games. Was it Clear and Present Danger? He's a bad guy in that. Desperado, bad guy.
Oh,
A few other
Desperado.
credits.
That's a deep cut there.
Love it. Love that
Yes.
movie. But
That
yeah,
needs to
I
be
mean
remade.
that
Oh,
no, you can't remake that. How much?
oh.
Because then you get like completely cheese dick on that, like because it's ridiculous now. But if you remade it now today, it's like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna make it a comedy with Seth Rogen as El Mariachi? Like that seems like the only way to do it is like Seth Rogen is El Mariachi and Desperado the remake. Like that's Seth Rogen. That's his bag. Ever since he fucked up Green Hornet for me, I feel like oh he's just gonna do some remakes and I did
Okay,
not
you and I
see.
both know who would be cast in that role. Who's the most working Hispanic actor in Hollywood right now?
I don't know.
It would be Pedro Pascal.
Oh, sure.
And it would
I would
be
do.
amazing.
I would watch it. Yeah.
And you could bring Cheech back.
You
Same
could bring
part.
everyone back. Bring
I
everybody
basically,
back.
I don't think Selma Hayek would carry as much. I don't think that role would carry the water as much as it did then. No offense to Selma Hayek, still doing very great work.
So, what did you think about Jessica Williams as Frankie, the bar owner? To me, I totally didn't see where she was coming from. But what did you think about her owning that bar and seeking Dalton out?
I understand the seeking out part, but I didn't understand why the bar was still even like operating and why people were going to it. Like it was like this rundown part of whatever with no like bar. John Taffer needed to show up, not Dalton, and figure that place out. Like it needed a rescue. Like a bar with that kind of history and that kind of cool tea theme didn't need like eclectic bands and chicken wire. It's not Blues Brothers. We're not we're not doing that, right? We're not playing rawhide there. So what do we do? I don't understand. I thought that there would be. She has all these plans, but no, like
She doesn't have
she needed.
plans. She
Well,
didn't have
yeah,
plans.
she needed like some kind of. She needed a bar rescue. She should have been seeking out John Taffer, not Jake
Yeah.
Gyllenhaal.
She was looking to stall. That's all she was looking to do. Like, oh, if I just stall this, then these people will, he's Ben Brandt is working with people, shady people, because he has no money because his dad's in prison or whatever, and he'll run out of money soon. Like, that's your plan. Okay. So really, you didn't need a bouncer to come out there at all. There was no purpose for you to seek out Post Malone, who never would have kicked anyone's ass in real life, or Dalton. So it's interesting to see that, but you brought up the music a little bit, but was the music Roadhousey enough for you? Did it hit those same Roadhouse memories
Well, the
as it
old
did
Roadhouse
in?
was kind of a westerny bar, so like
They had both styles of music, country and western.
yeah. Well, that was Blues Brothers. But I mean, the music was good. It was fine, but again, like it didn't in the area where it was in the Florida Keys. It didn't make sense, at least to me. Maybe I
What do
just have
you what do you
a
expect for them to play at a bar in the Florida Keys?
well, the Keys is such a tourist heavy area that I'm one surprised at the depressed area around it, right? All those, but again, I haven't made that drive.
It's
So,
it's kind of like that. The funny thing is, this wasn't even shot in the Florida Keys.
yeah.
It was somewhere completely not Florida Keys, but it was very similar
Mhm.
because there's just not a whole lot there. I wasn't impressed when I drove out to the Keys. I was just
Yeah.
like, this is it? This is it? Like,
I'm
okay.
just aware of where the bell is or the buoy or whatever the big thing that says you're in the Keys, and there's some bars around it.
Was the action roadhousey enough for you?
I felt like the last fight in this movie personified CTE. Like the way they slowed everything down and they kind of Guy Ritchie'd it a little bit and were moving some things and they were all kind of stumbly after the explosion. It was interesting. I didn't have a problem with it. I was impressed by some of it. The last like part of the like McGregor and Gyllenhaal fight was really good. I mean, in general, the fighting was marginal. I mean, it's not meant to be John Wick.
The what about the crocodile legend? Were you surprised
Oh,
with
you knew
that?
somebody was going to get eaten by the crocodile. Whether the crocodile was going to crawl onto the boat and he was going to have to rip its throat out, or something, right? Like half of me is like, he saved that knife that he got stabbed with. Is that how he takes out the crocodile? Like Crocodile Dundee style, right in the head? Like, is
I
that
was
what's gonna
hoping
happen or what?
I was hoping that would have done something at the end of the movie. Knox gets taken by the crocodile or something like that. Like that to me, that at the end it would have been more satisfactory to me. But
Yeah,
I thought it was like kind of funny in the middle of it. It was like, what the fuck was that?
it was
Like, yep,
definitely
they're in
funny.
Florida. They're in Florida. So,
Yeah.
what about
You
the
see a lot of crocodiles around you?
crocodiles? No, alligators, yes. But there are Florida crocodiles around here somewhere. We didn't have a throat rip in this one. We had a
No.
throat punch. Did your feelings get hurt that Jake Gyllenhaal did not rip someone's throat out?
I thought they were gonna lead to it. I thought that's what he was gonna do to McGregor or something like that, right? I thought we were still gonna get it. I was just like, oh, okay. So we're just punching to kill now. Okay.
He still killed a dude. He still killed a dude. So I guess that's, it's pretty cold-blooded. The boat chase and the fight was bananas. I feel like Ellie was on the boat with Ben Brandt. He has her hostage. He has no weapons. She could just jump off the boat and swim, just like Knox did. So why didn't she do that? Like, why did she
Crocodiles,
stay on
bro.
that boat?
Crocodiles, bro. I have no idea.
Doesn't make sense.
Maybe it's because Gyllenhaal was mad he didn't get Titanic, so he got to do a sinking boat scene at some point, right? Like I
Was he
don't
up for
know.
Titanic? Was he reading for
He's the
that?
age, right?
I don't know. Was did you just
Him and
make that
Leo
up?
are
Like something
no,
completely like unrelated?
him and Leo are the same age or close to it.
Sure, but was he up for Titanic?
I don't know, but
It's like,
he
oh,
did a good
it's
job. He did a good job in the sinking boat. So that's what it was giving me. That was the vibes I was getting after they shot the boat at the restaurant. After all was said and done, as they were mano and mano going through the roadhouse. Tell me the piano thing didn't make you laugh.
what was the piano thing?
Where they're fighting and he starts banging his head off the piano.
Oh, so I did. So my main takeaway from that is that those aren't the notes that he would be hitting on the piano. It infuriated me actually. I was like, God, couldn't you guys at least make it, So that okay, so that part, I didn't really think much of it. Uh, but the first time that I saw, like the second time I didn't think much of it. First time I saw it, I was like, those wouldn't be the notes that like I was kind of making fun of it to my wife and my two kids that were also watching the movie with me.
And did
But
they immediately say, nerd?
they didn't think anything of it. They thought the movie was like my two boys were just super bored with it. But the thing that I almost forgot to talk about was the original screenwriter of Roadhouse, I believe he's suing, whether it's MGM or Amazon or whoever was in charge of everything, but he's suing them for uh, allegedly using like AI voice to do some of the scenes while the SAG after strike was happening. And when I was watching the movie initially, I was like, why is the sound not synced up? And like, why is it seems like every McGregor scene, his scenes were all ADR, so they were all done after the fact, and he threw in his voice after the fact. And so I'm wondering, like, oh, was that the case? Did they use some like AI shit and just did some of the voice acting that way? Because did you notice that? Like, it wasn't quite up to speed. Like even Daniela's lines seemed like, oh, that's all ADR. This is not live performance as it is. So like
I think
it was
that was
really
your
weird to me.
internet connection.
No, 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 no. You go back. I mean, you can't fake Conor McGregor's voice. Like that's just how it is. Like it's obvious ADR that McGregor was doing for that. If it was McGregor and it wasn't AI type of dialogue that was being used. So
I
you
mean,
didn't
it
notice
might
that
have
at all.
been.
There's no sound issues for you. Not sound
I
issues,
didn't.
but
I This movie was not artistic enough for me to pay attention to those things.
yeah, the ADR just really bothered me. So that was a thing for I was like, like why? Why you guys had plenty of time, but at the same time, I guess yeah, with the strike that probably halted quite a bit. So I don't know if that is the reason as to why some of McGregor's dialogue was just kind of not sounding right then I totally side with the original screenwriter for that because that was kind of some bullshit. And if it was like against strike rules, then hey, that's even some more bullshit.
I was going to ask you how you felt about the ending, right?
It's
You
fine.
get all this fighting, you get all this back and forthing, and then he just leaves to go walk the earth. He doesn't take the
Yeah,
money, he doesn't take anything. He gives it to the little girl and her dad in the burned out bookstore
it's
and
fine.
going to walk the earth.
That's whatever. It was a movie. That's
Do we
what
get a
that's
Roadhouse
exactly what I
2
thought.
or like Roadhouse the series?
I'll be fine with a Roadhouse too. Absolutely. And you know what? Bring Knox back after the end credit scene where he strolls out of the hospital in his hospital gown, all fucked up and shit. But yeah, we'll do Roadhouse 2. I'll watch it. It's fine. I like the characters. I thought some of the execution was a little bit poor, but yeah, I'll watch it. What do you prefer, the original Roadhouse or this one?
I don't know that this one has the rewatchability for me of the original, but I think the original has the rewatchability due to terrible 80s movie nostalgia on my part and bias. Like, this isn't bad, but it's not timeless. You watched it twice, you rewatched it literally.
Yeah, I I don't know, man. I think just because I like Gyllenhaal better than Swayze, I'll vote for this Roadhouse. But that's not a slap to Patrick Swayze in the original Roadhouse. It's just I don't care.
It's
I
just Dan
just
Swayze
don't.
bias. That's what it is.
It absolutely is. Like you're not an action star, Patrick Swayze. I'll buy you as a surfer that robs banks, but I won't buy you as a bouncer. You know,
Yeah.
like you are skinnier than some girls' pairs of jeans. So like I feel like this is not gonna be a realistic fight. Now there are some dudes that are like lean and mean and fighting machines, but at the same time, you go up against a dude that's like 6'4", 350 pounds. Like there's gonna be a slight weight disadvantage for you. So for that reason, I'll pick the UFC Elwood Dalton and his Roadhouse movie over Patrick Swayze's.
So you're saying that when you watched the original, you did not have the time of your life. Well,
There's like three scenes in that movie that I remember, and they're all for like childish kitty reasons. So that's all.
so the real question, the more important question, the question that we ask every time, based on that, I think I know the answer, but I got to ask you, Dan, with New Road House starring Jake Gyllenhaal, not to be confused with Roadhouse, can you do this movie all day?
I can't. I'm just gonna go right to the chase, but like, yeah, I can't. It's not. I don't think this movie is worse than some of the other movies that we watched for the podcast that I have done. And I can't do this all day for, but uh, will I watch it again? Yes. Will I absolutely say like you guys need to watch this? Like, no, I won't. But if you like Jake Gyllenhaal and you like Conor McGregor and you like just ridiculousness in your action movies, sure. But it's just something I personally cannot do all day, even though I have watched it twice already. But I'll return the favor to you, Mark. When it comes to road house, can you do this all day?
Yeah, I'm a no as well. I'm not as much of a vehement no as you are.
Oh,
Um,
it's not a vehement no.
yeah,
It's the lightest of I can't do this all day.
yeah. I feel
I
like
mean, there's other ones.
if this movie had a theatrical release and went through those normal channels, I would classify it as a movie that if it's on cable and you're like in a hotel room without a streaming service, like, okay, I could leave this on, but it's not like I'm going to go to Amazon to watch it. It's good. I'm surprised at how good it is in ways. It's not the worst movie we've reviewed. It's just like if I want a funny, campy kind of punch 'em movie, I'm going to watch something from the 80s or the 90s that's timeless and gives me the member berries. If I want something new with action, so many movies better, right? Like you're gonna watch a Wick or something like
Yeah.
that. So it's in a zone. But those McGregor fans have to love it.
That wraps it up for this episode on Road House. But until next time, I'm Dan the Part Time Adventure. That's Mark the Resident Jedi.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let us know what you think. And if you really want to, send us videos of your best gorilla walk. We will not post them on social media, but we'll say that we got them, and we'll be really excited about it.
We'll see y'all next time.